Okay, good afternoon, Composition 1. This is actually the first time I'm trying to do a daytime recording because my children are not here. So I have the luxury of recording without having background noise, fighting and screaming. So the door is actually open for once, and I have the freedom to just talk to you without doing this at like 12 o'clock at night, which is nice. So this is Composition 1, as I said, and this week we're going to cover the rest of Chapter 4. The assignment for this week was to finish the paragraph on a horrible hotel. So you just have to type that up and hand it in, which is due by midnight tonight, okay? So we're going to continue through this Chapter 4, which we just started. I told you a little story about, my personal experience with a person who had a criminal background. But I didn't get into much detail about that. So I would like you, the next assignment that I'm going to ask you to do is to write about a person. The person should be a remarkable person. There should be something special about this person. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of static. The person should be exceptional in some way. It could be someone who's super famous, a celebrity, an international figure that everybody knows. It can be Korean, or it can be somebody from another country, from Canada, or from Kenya, or from Italy. It doesn't really matter. Again, though, as I've been stressing to my students, I need you to actually reference something where you got the information, and it has to be an English source, just so that I can verify that you're not actually lifting something that's been translated from another language, Korean, Chinese, Bangladesh, or Uzbek, or anything else. This is a concern that has arisen recently as we have so many foreign students, and because translation programs become more common, that you can just find something in Korean and have it translated and then hand it in. If you do that, the patterns are pretty obvious that you have done that. So I'm going to require you, this is a graded assignment, so I'm going to give you an A, B, C, D, or F, according to how well you do the writing. And this will give you an opportunity to get some feedback on how your writing is going. So far, I've just been asking you to hand in your assignments, and I've been checking them, and they're either complete or not. But this time, I'm going to grade them. I'm going to look them over carefully, and I'm going to give you a grade and email you back and tell you what you need to improve, what you've done well, and what needs improvement, and what is missing or needs to be added, that kind of stuff. And I know this is, any good student wants that kind of feedback, so that's what we're going to do. Now, this assignment, I always give 2 weeks for students to hand in graded assignments. I usually take longer to turn them around as well and give them back. When I check assignments, I do it within a couple days, but when they're graded, it takes longer. So you have 2 weeks to do this, which would mean today is Thursday the 23rd, and April 23rd, and then I'm going to need a calendar. The 30th is a holiday next week, but I also want to remind you, I don't think it's necessary, since we have such a flexible schedule. Like, I allow you to log in all week, so we don't need to worry about the makeup class for next Thursday. You don't even have to log in next Thursday. You can do it on Friday. So enjoy your holiday next Thursday, but my video will be uploaded next Thursday. Despite the fact that it's a holiday, we would normally have class in a classroom, but we don't. So just log in like you would normally do next week, and I'll upload your week 8 video next Thursday, and you can just log in on Friday or Thursday night when your holiday is over, okay? So don't worry about rescheduling next Thursday, which is Buddha's birthday. because I don't think that's necessary. We don't need to worry about that. So let's just keep going. It's May 7th. May 7th is 2 weeks from now. So May 7th is when I want you to hand in an assignment. This is too short. The example on page 26 is too short. So I want you to write about an exceptional person, as the title of the chapter suggests. You can choose anybody you want. The person can be alive or dead, but the person has to have lived. In other words, no fictitious people. You can't write about Tony Stark or Iron Man, as the case may be, or Peter Parker or Spider-Man or anything else. Any other character is not allowed. It has to be a person who is actually alive. And I would like you to use a combination of fact, things that actually happened that the person did, and also interpret the things that they did. So the actual facts of their life, where they were born, where they lived, what they did, the awards they won, the events they attended, things that happened to them during their lives. I want you to talk about that. Plus, I want you to analyze it and give your own perspective as well. Was that, they did this and they were here, but should they have been there? And was that a good thing or a bad thing? Or what are the consequences of that? Or why did they do those things? Were they affected by other people? What things do they like and dislike, and how do they share, themselves with other people? And that makes for a much more interesting paragraph than sort of the basic paragraph that you have there about Jack Collins. Now, I did say I had an experience with somebody who had, an ex-con. My father is a minister. He's retired, but he was serving as a pastor at a local detention center. So it's not maximum security prison, but I shouldn't say normal, but sort of lightly less secure, less dangerous environment for criminals who had not done something very serious. So he went there and he tried to help rehabilitate the inmates. And part of the thing that, he was a spiritual, because he was from a church, he was trying to comfort them spiritually, mentally, psychologically, encourage them to improve their lives. And as a consequence of his attitude, he was permitted, as per his position, if he got the proper permission, to allow these people to go outside, almost like a field trip, but like a very limited and carefully organized field trip. But I mean, when you get to go out of school, not that school is a prison, it depends on your opinion what you think about that, but when you go on a field trip with supervisors, chaperones, and teachers, this is sort of the kind of process you have to go through. Your parents need to sign permission, anything happens, and there's insurance involved and stuff like that. So he took them out multiple times, and occasionally I just remember one time in particular, but I may be mistaken, it might have been more than once, but he took them out and we went on a picnic with a couple guys, and we hung out and played games in the park and ran around and laughed and had fun, and then he took them back. After we went home, he drove them back to prison, and they went back in prison. I don't remember it very clearly because I was probably 6 years old or 7 years old. It was grade 1 or grade 2. But it just goes to show I didn't feel any differently around these people, in that sometimes people need to be given a second chance. That's sort of what the Jack Collins example is about. It starts off by saying Jack Collins is the most amazing person I've ever met. And when you find out the details that he was a person who was in prison, that's not what you expect. There's a kind of a twist there where it's a device. to make the person more interested in the information, is that the most amazing person you ever met was Steve Jobs. He makes a lot of money, and he's really rich, and he's intelligent, and he's cool, and all the people respect him. That's what you expect when somebody starts off a paragraph like that. However, there is, this part of the whole appeal to the paragraph is the fact that it kind of has a reversal, where the most amazing person you met is the person that you don't expect. And it's, the old idiom, don't judge a book by its cover, because he also has spider tattoos and he's scary looking, but he's a really nice guy. So this person has decided to describe them like that. Now that's the kind of thing you can do, even though I've told you have to be clear, coherent, and concise, and you have to follow the format, and you have to have a topic sentence and a concluding sentence, but you can do those kind of things, and that requires a little bit of style and a little bit of creativity. So keep that in mind as we go through our stuff. That's, you can get an A on a paper just by having perfect organization and information that's very ordered, but there is that extra level where you can make it not just perfectly formatted and organized, but also interesting and attractive to the people that are reading. So keep that in mind too. Don't let your creativity get out of control though, because I need you to follow the format. On page 29, there's a bunch of people, and you have to describe what they look like and then use 3 adjectives to describe who they are. This is not homework because the main assignment is an exceptional person, but this exercise is also valuable. It's on page 29. It's just more practice with adjectives. Similarly, on page 30 and page 31, I would like to draw your attention to the 2 paragraphs there. They are about people, and they ask you to work on your concluding sentences. So what makes a good concluding sentence? That's a matter of opinion, but there's sort of several strategies you can use. The main thing is that the concluding sentence shouldn't introduce anything new. It's supposed to be the end, so you need to indicate that your paragraph is over, and that is it. There's no more coming, because you don't want to just suddenly stop and people like, well, how did it end? Or what's the point? So what the concluding sentence does for you, it shows to the reader, it indicates to the reader that the course of your argument has completed itself, and that you don't need to read anymore. Even if you didn't see on the page that there was no more coming, if you were listening to a paragraph, if you heard a concluding sentence, you would know that it was over and there was nothing else to be said, right? You don't have to say the end, or thank you very much for listening, or thank you very much for reading, because the last sentence indicates that it's done, okay? So I got a little piece of paper here to remind myself. There's a lot of different ways you can conclude, but I think the safest ones, in the first case, the safest one is to restate, to say the same thing again. After that, and when you restate, don't say exactly the same thing, but basically change the words around and say a similar idea in a different way. That's what restatement means. You have the option of summarizing. So I said all these things and this is why, blah, blah, blah. One of my favorites is making a prediction. And this is just because it's a little bit more exciting. It's riskier because your prediction can be wrong. But when you get to the end of a paragraph, you can just say, well, yeah, I'm saying all this because in the future, I think, human beings destroying the climate is going to end up ruining the earth, and it's going to be a catastrophe. So this kind of thing, arguing something and then saying this is how it was, so this is what it's going to be like in the future, it can be like a sort of a warning, or it can be a positive thing. It can say things are going to go well because look at all the things I said. So therefore, if this trends positively, then everything is going to be fine. Or you can say, if things like this continue, there's going to be a disaster. Both of them are very useful. They're a way of connecting your beginning and your conclusion, your beginning and your end, your introduction, your conclusion, or your topic sentence, and your concluding sentence. But it's also a way of getting somebody interested. Well, this is why I need to know this information. You can advise people a piece of advice. So at the end, you give some advice, like this is how you use this, or this is how you should use it. You can suggest and say, okay, well, this is what I said, and so, this is what you could do with it. It goes along with something, I call this advice or suggestion, I call it application, like making it practical, so what you wrote can be used for something. And that's always a good thing too. And finally, you can say, well, this is the reason, I'm emphasizing this because it's important, because education is important, or morality is important, or this person was so, this person had such an impact on our culture that everybody should know about them. And these people come around all the time, right? This is why we study Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Genghis Khan, Sejong the Great, and the list goes on, right? We study those people because they had such a huge effect. So you can choose anybody you want. It can be a person who's alive. A lot of people choose contemporary people. It can be somebody who lived a long time ago. It's up to you. I would like you to write a full page this time, and I would like you to give me a reference. Okay? The reference is important. Where did you get the information that you're using? And the format is not important. I just need the website, the book, the person, the video, some sort of tag, some sort of citation is a correct term. I shouldn't say tag, that's internet lingo from recently. But you cite it, and then you write it down and put a name and a label and a date that you accessed it, so that I can check the information where where the information came from, so that I can verify that you've done your work correctly and it's original stuff and not plagiarized. All right? And that brings us basically to the end of the chapter. Chapter 4 concludes. There's one more thing on page 33 where it says match the topic sentence with the concluding sentence, and this is not for homework, but it's a useful exercise. Again, this might come up on the exam. Potentially, we have a really, the exam's going to be quite intense because it's worth a lot of your grade. The grade policy has been relaxed, so I will update you on that later, but I want you to take everything seriously. So page 33, part A, also, has a mix and match sort of exercise where you can just practice. Well, this topic sentence belongs with this concluding sentence, and before you write your stuff, it's all about people. They got Elvis and Daniel Radcliffe, the actor who played Harry Potter, and my uncle and other things. Like I said, I would like you to choose somebody. Don't choose a family member. Choose somebody, a public figure or a celebrity or a famous person that you can do some research on, so that I can see where you got the information. And that assignment is due 2 weeks from now on May 7th, as I mentioned. Okay? CNU has decided everything will be online for the rest of the semester, except for the exam. So I will finally get to see you composition people in the exam. It's a little bit late, but better late than never, I suppose. So keep up on your work and keep logging in on time. I know this is the last minute, sort of. There's only 4 hours to our regular scheduled class, but there's all kinds of technical difficulties going on my end. So I will do my best to deliver the content on time or earlier, but I appreciate your patience in the meantime. So thank you for listening. This is the first daytime lecture. I hope there are others like this, because it's nice to have the sun coming in the window and some natural light. All right, have a good day and see you next week.